I am recording. So let's start with seller expectations in a crazy market. So one thing I want to share, I told a couple of you guys this. I talked with my coach earlier this week who coaches people all throughout the nation. And he asked me a question. He said, what's the one thing that surprised you so far this year? And he's asked all of his coaching clients that question this week. And everyone except for one said, man, the market's been crazy. The market's been picking up, like multiple offers and limited inventory. And it's like it was 2 years ago or 3 years ago. And it's way crazier than it was last year. Across the nation, everyone is saying that. So it's not just me or a couple of us going, man, this is a little crazy. This is happening nationwide. Like this spring, I think we can anticipate it's going to be a crazy seller's market. There's going to be limited inventory, multiple offers, things moving fast. So we talked about that last week. Garrett sent out that link via Slack. If you haven't watched that video, watch that video in terms of how do you manage buyers in that market. But on the flip side, how do you manage seller expectations in a market like this? So what you tend to find is that you will encounter some problems with seller expectations in a market like this. So what is your guys' opinions of, like, what are some problems you may encounter with seller expectations in a market like this?
Or list too high.
May want to list too high. Yep.
Let's see what they get.
For sure. So yeah, so they may just, hey, let's just list at whatever, everything's selling. Let's just, list wherever I want to. Certainly. Yeah. What else?
I mean, I don't think everything's falling off the shelves. I think it's a certain price range.
Mm-hmm.
So like setting that expectation in the listing appointment of like, I had to dial that back with that one I just had.
Sure.
Because I was like, oh yeah, there's like crazy low inventory and like really high demand. And they're like, oh, that's good. But like their price point is like not super low.
So the other problem would be
so like dialing that.
them thinking the craziness is across everything at every price point, which it's not. Yep. So they may think, well, my uncle's house that in Thornton sold really fast. Well, okay, well, what was it? Well, it was listed at 290 detached home. Like, okay. Thornton.
I cannot see every letter.
So listed way too high. Also expectations of thinking everything's going to be crazy. What else? What else are problems you encounter with seller expectations in this market?
Not trying to fix anything.
Yep.
Like I just feel like it's a little bit aggressive. Like you still have to fix something. Better to work with your current buyer than to fall out of contract, go back and.
Yep. Yeah. So you'll encounter a lot of sellers that are like, I had 5 other offers. Like I'm going to do whatever I want come inspection time because I'll just go to the next offer, right? So you have a lot of that in this market. Sellers doesn't want to fix anything, and buyers feel the opposite way. Buyers are like, I offered $20,000 over asking price in order to get this house.
So
fix what I want come
Literally
inspection time, right? So it's very, very common. It's actually why cancellation rate increases in a market like this. This is one of the reasons why it increases in a market like this.
Quick side
After
note.
that trading, oh sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say, should we take that into consideration as we look at our under contract goals?
Probably, but I think that we can approach those things well and set proper expectations with our sellers and our buyers to try to avoid that, right? So we can't always set expectations for the seller on the other side, but we can set expectations for our buyer, right? And so like, when is your buyer most ripe to hear this about inspections?
Before.
When they're writing the offer and they're trying to do anything and everything to get the offer accepted. So have the conversation then. By the way, we're trying to do anything and everything to get this offer accepted. One thing that you may have to realize is come inspection time, they're not going to want to fix very much. So just be prepared for that. Be prepared that you're not going to get much inspection. But if you're okay with that, let's offer this and let's move forward. If you set that expectation up front when they're most excited and they're willing to do anything and everything to get the house, then it'll be easier come inspection time. Opposite thing with your seller. You want to talk to your seller about that and say, listen, like you're going to have a lot of buyers offering on your house, but they're still going to expect come inspection time that you fix things. So let's be prepared. Like if you prepare your seller for the worst case scenario, there could be a couple grand worth of stuff or more. Like let's just factor that into your margin when you're accepting a house. When you have them go, yeah, this is 10 over, but keep in mind, you're going to want to budget for some inspection repairs. Like when you set that expectation before a seller accepts an offer, same idea, right? You're setting the expectation for them up front. Anything else for a market like this that you guys have encountered, like seller expectations that become an issue? One thing that I see a lot, and I think that this is going to come up in a lot of your listing appointments, is sellers mistaking that selling fast means selling for top dollar. And so there's a lot of sellers in this market that go, well, my agent sold my house in the first weekend. Well, yeah, great. A monkey could have done the same thing too, because your house was on the MLS and there was a million people that want that. What you need to understand is selling fast does not always mean selling for top dollar. You need an agent that's going to help you get the most amount of money, right? And so there are strategies like a great example of that would be a listing agent that lists their home on a Wednesday or on a Tuesday. Or they put it on a Tuesday. Someone goes out and sees the property Tuesday night. They write an offer. It's under contract on Wednesday. That seller's happy. Like, it went under contract in less than a day. But did they actually get the top dollar for their home? Maybe not. If they would have waited till the weekend and let 10 other people see it, then they could have driven that price up higher. There's always the one-off situation where someone offers more than what they should right away, and good for you. It wasn't going to get multiple offers in the first place, right? You have to coach your seller through those things, right? But selling fast is not selling for top dollar and coaching your sellers through those things, right? Yep. I think listing way too high. So kind of going back through some of those objections, listing way too high, in my opinion, you can solve that by going through the listing appointment the way you always go through the listing appointment. And we'll talk about that in a little bit. But if you go through the listing appointment and by the time you get to that point where you're talking about price, you give them a range, then if they choose the top end of the range, great. But you gave them a range. You said, like, this is what I think would be a realistic, and then try to get them to put it within that range. And if they put it within that range, great. If they want to go above and beyond that range, then you want to let them know, listen, stuff that is selling fast is stuff that is priced appropriately and looks good and people are ready to jump on it. So if you're overpriced, you may be sacrificing offers, first weekend on the market. And there's a big drop off for the stuff that's selling like crazy and the stuff that's sitting for several weeks. And, and so you really want to price appropriately and make sure you are in the market, not just on the market. So,
oh man, drop that pen, my man.
Big difference in a single.
That's straight from Shift, actually. So that's right from Shift when they talk about seller expectations in Shift. They say there's a difference being in the market and on the market.
I'm gonna get that tattooed on my body.
And being on the market is, hey, we're on the MLS. In the market is priced to where buyers actually want to offer and actually would consider the house. So
I like your idea.
I'm trying to think about any of those other expectations we didn't talk about. We talked about. I think the way that you beat the craziness of this market doesn't apply to everything is also the listing appointment we're going to talk about, because before you talk about comps, you should talk about the neighborhood stats for their neighborhood, right? And so when I tell them the average for your neighborhood is 99% sold price to list price and it's selling in 21 days, what does that tell them? Okay, you're going to sell under list price and it's going to take 3 weeks to sell, right? Like, I don't care what you've heard out there, that doesn't apply to your neighborhood, right? And so again, all this stuff kind of points to, if you guys will stick to the script, do the listing appointment the way that we've designed it, it's designed to fight all of these various issues or expectations that are going to pop up. And anytime you leave something off or don't do it the way that we've designed it, keep in mind, like, we built this listing appointment guide in a market like this. And so, like, when I built this listing appointment guide that's on our Relevate Team Wiki website, it was built to handle all these expectations and problems you might encounter with a seller, right? So just keep pointing back to, we'll do a listing appointment refresher and make sure you guys are on the same page there. The other thing that we didn't say that I think comes up a lot in this market, another seller objection you're going to have in a market that's crazy like this is, you know what, I really would like to sell, and I can totally see where my house is going to sell fast and I'm going to make a lot of money, but am I going to get what I want on the other side? Like, will I be able to actually get an offer accepted? Because the market's crazy and there's so many buyers out there and there's no inventory. Like, will I find what I want? And so that's why the next section I want to talk about is maneuvering buy-sells, because buy-sells can be tricky, especially in a market like this. And so a lot of sellers may want to sell and they're a qualified buyer, but they're afraid to do so because they're not sure they'll actually be able to get what they want on the other side. One, because of super limited inventory, there's just not a lot out there, so they're literally not seeing anything they like. Or two, they're afraid they won't get an offer accepted because their offer is contingent, and rightfully so. They'll have more trouble than the next person, right? So the next thing I wanted to jump into quickly was maneuvering buy sells. So it feels like we have a lot of people that are talking right now with potential buying and selling. I know Sarah's dealing with 2 right now. And so I know Matt's dealing with 1. I know, like, I think Natalia's dealing with a couple right now. So actually Garrett just went going on an appointment right now for a buy sell. So buying and selling can be extremely tricky. And I'm not sure if I've talked through this with everybody, but here's my process. This is basically like an addendum that I add on to my listing appointment if I know they're buying and selling. So what I mean by that is just an extra conversation I add on if they're going to buy sell. So if they're going to buy sell, this is the conversation that I want to have. I want to present them with basically their 3 options. They're going to have essentially 3 options when they buy sell. I want to explain to them those 3 options, give them the positive negatives of each, and then let them choose, but be a good fiduciary and guide and help guide them towards the one I think makes the most sense for them. So here's what that looks like. So I know you're wanting to buy and sell. That can be tricky. Let me tell you the 3 different options of what it looks like to buy sell. So the first would be we put your listing on the market, we get it under contract, and then we go look for a house. So the positive of this is you feel confident that your home's under contract, you know your home's going to sell. The negative of this is what?
Not getting accepted in time or finding something you like.
Yeah, not finding that next house, right? Like I'm nervous about finding the next house, right? So you want to, in my opinion, you want to present the positives and negatives of each, kind of empower them to make the right decision. So the benefit is you get your home under contract, you feel good that your home's going to sell. The negative is having a time crunch on finding the next property. Another positive is your home's already under contract, so it's a little bit easier to write that next offer and get your offer accepted because your home's already under contract. Another negative is you may need to ask for a post-occupancy agreement from the buyer. That might limit your buyer pool of who's willing or able to purchase your house, right? So those are your positive negatives.
Or you're moving twice.
Or you're moving twice, right? And when I'm ultimately selling them on this option, that's what I tell them is I say, here's what you're afraid of. You're afraid you're going to be homeless, right? You're not going to be homeless. Worst case scenario is you're going to have to move twice. And moving sucks and no one wants to move twice, but you're not going to be homeless. Your worst case scenario is you got to move into something temporary and then into the next property. And if that's the worst case scenario, to make sure you don't feel pressure and you're not homeless, like we can deal with that. I can help with that. We'll get you an Airbnb, put your stuff in a storage unit, you'll be good, right? So that's your worst case scenario in this situation. Next one is the opposite of that. Let's start by finding your next home. Let's just start by shopping for your next home. Let's write offers contingent on listing and selling your house. Let's get your next home under contract contingent on selling your current home. Well, the positive of this is pretty obvious. You already know what you're going to be moving into before you even list your house, right? The negative of this is you're going to have a really hard time getting your offer accepted, especially in a crazy market like this. If there's a multiple offer situation, you're going to be bottom of the barrel if your situation is, I would love to buy your house, but I need to list my house and get it under contract and get through inspections and get through appraisals and close on it before I can buy your house, right? And so you're adding just think about it this way. A seller's already nervous about all the contingencies you have in your offer. When you write a contingent offer that's not under contract yet, you've more than doubled their contingencies that they have to worry about. They have to worry about 2 inspections now. They have to worry about 2 appraisals now. They have to worry about 2 loan objections now, 2 title commitments, 2 HOA objections, let alone worrying about it going under contract and someone buying it to begin with, right? Plus they have to trust that you're going to actually accept a good offer and not be an idiot and like know what a good offer is versus a bad offer, right? So I talk them through that and I say, that's tough, but if that's your process, that's your process. The third is essentially, there's 2 other options actually. The third is what I call simultaneous. Like we could try to do these both at the same time. Like let's, at the same time that we're getting your home ready and getting it listed, start looking at properties. What this ultimately means is you're going to end up doing one of the other, right? Like if you start them both, ultimately you're either going to end up getting under contract first and then needing to buy after, or the reverse. You're not going to be able to time it perfectly, but at least you can get started on both and get an idea of kind of what's happening. And usually what I tell them is, if you're not sure which route to go, let's start with both. And then ultimately, like, urgency will make the decision for you. Like, if someone writes an offer on your house, you're not going to like not take it because, oh, I haven't found the next house yet. You'll probably just take it and then get a post-occupancy agreement. Or if you find the perfect property, you're probably not going to pause to write an offer. You're going to go ahead and write that offer. Maybe you miss out, but you write the offer. So simultaneous.
New builds are a perfect opportunity for a scenario like this.
Yes. New builds actually become an amazing opportunity in a crazy market like this because there's never multiple offer situations. It's first come, first serve.
Pick your lot.
And they don't care about contingencies. They'll give you the timing.
We'll give you contingencies.
They'll give you contingencies all day. They're going to give you timing, like it needs to be on the market by this time and under contract by this time, but they're not going to turn you down because of a contingency. So contingencies, VA offers, FHA, like buyers that are hard in multiple offer situations, like new construction becomes awesome because the only urgency is the urgency new construction always uses, which is, well, someone else is looking at this lot, so if you want it, you better lock it up today. They don't tell you that. Well, that's just this lot on this block. We're opening up the next lot next week, and then we're opening up this whole other phase the month after that. So there's going to be a million other choices. But this lot you looked at today is going under contract if you don't offer today. But that can work in your favor, right? That can push them. And so yeah, if you have a crazy contingency, that's kind of your golden key or your kind of cheat code of all this is if they're able to or okay with new construction, that can be the easy way out of multiple offer situations. I put a lot of VA buyers in a new construction over in Aurora because like they can get them and they don't have multiple offers. And so that's a good point. The last possible option, which could be a great option in this market if they're able to do it, would be a bridge loan. So a bridge loan is only going to be applicable if they have quite a bit of equity in their current home, which tends to be true in this market. If they have a good amount of equity in their current home, they can get a bridge loan. A bridge loan essentially borrows against the equity in their current home to help them purchase the next property. So basically, they start by,
It's a HELOC.
yeah, it's basically a HELOC. You're taking out money from the equity in your home to go purchase the next one. And then once you've got that all set, then you can sell your old property. And so you can just worry about the next one, get the next one locked up. You're able to buy it because this loan lets you pull that equity out of your current property for the down payment. Then once that's all settled, go sell your property and you can sell it empty or staged and feel good about it. So if they're able to do that, they can do that. But not everyone's going to be in a situation where they have that equity to be able to do that. So questions on the maneuvering buy sells? Does that make sense? Cool.
Yes.
What is your guys' thoughts on in this market? Like, what do you feel like is the right option to try to push your clients towards? It's going to be situation dependent, but in this market, what do you think is the right option to try to push clients towards? You say number one, get listing under contract, then go look for a home.
I always begin with 3 and then one of them will dictate, but I like number 1 the best.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's already like everyone's feeling like the house is already ready. You go out, you're seeing kind of stuff you'd like,
Mm-hmm.
but painting the expectation of, hey, you might not even get it, but at least
Mhm.
let's find things that you're liking.
Yeah.
So then as soon as you do get that offer, you're ready to kind of hit the ground running
Mm-hmm.
instead of like, well, I'm not sure which area I kind of want to go in. So you already kind of have a good path.
Well, trick question. You're all wrong. No, I'm just kidding. So
I hate school.
no. So I 100%.
Again.
I 100% agree that number one is usually ideal in a crazy seller's market because it's not as hard to get a post occupancy agreement, so they can get 60 days to try to find the next property after they close, and it's going to be a lot harder to get an offer accepted if you're not already under contract. So number one tends to be better, but here's the caveat I will give. You got to dig in and you got to understand their fears and their motivations. So the caveat to all this is if they legitimately are unsure if they will be able to find anything they want to buy, like there are going to be some buyers out there that are like, I would love to sell my house. I'm not concerned I'm going to be able to sell it. Like I know it'll sell fast, but I'm really just nervous that I'll find anything out there I like. Either there just may not be an option available right now, or I just can't afford really what I need to move forward, right? If that's their fear, they're probably not going to let you get their home under contract without knowing something else is out there that they're actually going to want to buy. So typically those people need to start with looking at some properties. But I what I do is a little bit of red light, green light, which is, all right, we're going to look at homes until you find something you like. If you find something you want to write an offer on, even if we miss out, that tells me you're going to find something you like. And so like I have the conversation of, like, I don't think there's just one home out there for you. The moment you find one house you like, there's going to be more. So the moment they find a house they like, whether they write an offer and get it accepted or not, I push them to list their house for sale, because I'm like, you're going to be able to find something you like. Now let's list your home for sale and move on. I think the other flip side of that would be if they legitimately are concerned that their home will even sell. There's some sellers out there that are just like, I just got so much work to do on this house. Like, they just really don't trust you that the market's crazy and their home will sell. Then they need to list first, because they don't trust their home's actually going to get under contract, right? So you need to understand their fears and their concerns. And if it's one of those two, then start with what they're more concerned with. That just makes the most sense. Like, if they don't think their home will sell, all right, then let's worry about selling it and then worry about getting something under contract, or the reverse, right? Make sense?
Yep.
Okay. All right, so let's jump in quickly to a refresher on the listing appointment. I'm not going to go super in depth on this. I'm not going to do the whole thing, but I want to remind you the steps and how I progress through a listing appointment, because it's designed to handle all of these issues. Okay, so when you do a listing appointment, the first thing you're going to do is tour the home. And the point of touring the home is what?
Building rapport.
Building rapport.
Yes.
Yes, that's the right answer.
One.
Free candy. If I had
All I'm
candy,
good
I would
at
throw
really
it.
is making
Um,
friends, and then my fuck-ups look a little less.
So, so the point of touring the home is building rapport. The point of touring the home is not to tell them how amazing their house is and then 20 minutes later tell them why it's not worth what they think it's worth. Okay? That is the number one mistake agents make. They walk around the house in the listing appointment.
Great.
They tell them how amazing the house is. Wow, this is really good. I really like this. I like what you did with this. Then you're going to sit down and you're going to tell them that they're wrong and that it's not worth what they think. So you're not going to do that. You're going to lock all this stuff away in your head. You're literally walking around their home. They got pictures like this up there. They got stuff like this. So you're gonna look at the stuff around their home and build rapport.
I love
What's your Strength Finder?
Oh, Strength Finders. I love that book, right? Or oh, it looks like you have kids. How many kids do you have? Just boys? Oh, that's awesome.
Too
I
bad.
love
I have a
little
bunch of boys too.
No?
Okay. So
I do that.
you're gonna build
It's weird
build
when I do it.
That's
build
just
rapport while you walk around the house. And then after you're done doing that, you're going to sit down, and this is really, really important. When you sit down, you need to set expectations for the meeting. They want you to jump straight to the numbers, and you need to tell them you're going to get to the numbers, but calm down. I'm going to get to those later, okay? I wouldn't use those words exactly, but
Sit down and shut up and buckle up
sit
for this
down,
ride.
calm down. So what I'm literally going to do is I'm going to walk through the agenda of the meeting. So I'm going to say, hey, we'll talk a little bit more about why you're selling and kind of what you're looking to accomplish here. We'll talk more about what we can do to help. We'll go through all the numbers, what your home is worth, what it's going to cost, and what you're going to walk away with. And then we'll answer any and all of your questions about selling. Anything else you want me to talk about that I didn't mention? Okay, perfect. So I let them know we're going to get to the comps, we're going to get to the numbers, but we're going to start with what I want to start with first. Okay? It's important to set the tone. Now, the first thing you're going to do is you are going to dig into their motivation. You want to dig into their motivation because you can customize your pitch from here on out. Like, dig into why, so before I even say like what questions to ask, what questions do you guys like to ask here to get the information you need to get or want to get up front? What questions do you ask of the seller here up front? What do you guys think?
I tend to ask them what they don't like about their current situation.
That's great.
What's your pain point?
Yeah, pain point, right? Yeah, I think I've said this several times, but it's this idea that there's a dream they're chasing or a nightmare they're escaping, and so sometimes it's not always a nightmare, but there's a pain they're leaving and like a joy they're chasing, and so you want to know that pain because that's going to become really helpful in like motivation and accepting offers and pushing forward. So yeah, so what's difficult, what's tough, what do you not love about your current situation? That's great.
Well, one of the reasons why I like to ask that question too is because if they're currently using a bedroom for an office, but they really want a true office, it can help me know that when we go for looking at properties in the future, that they definitely need that in their new home. So it kind of helps me, know that too. If that
Yeah,
makes
that's good.
sense.
That's good. People do tend to overcompensate on their current pain points, right? And so, like, if someone has a small yard, they're going to be like, I don't care about the inside of the house. I just want a massive yard, right? Like, if I don't have an office, like, I don't care what the kitchen looks like. I just need a freaking office. So that's a good point because they will tend to overcompensate on their pain point. What else? What other questions do you ask here to dig into seller motivation? How about
Why now?
why are you wanting to sell?
Like why now? Like what's making you decide that you want to go down this route now?
Yep. Yep. And then the next question, actually, I'm pretty sure is something that Bridget brought up that I've added to my appointments now. Correct me if my wording's wrong, Bridget, but you say something along the lines of, what are you nervous about in selling? Like what are you nervous about in this like listing process? That could be extremely helpful when you're figuring out, like, because then they may say, I'm nervous my home just won't sell,
Yeah,
right?
finding the next one.
Or I'm nervous about finding the next one, right? Or like I'm nervous that they may be very direct because they had a past bad experience with an agent, and they're like, I'm nervous you're not going to communicate enough, or I'm nervous that we won't have enough buyers that actually want to buy my property or whatever, right? Or a lot of times it's like, listen for the keys here. Like, I'm nervous about trying to get all this ready and all these buyers walking through my home and blah, 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 blah. Like, understand that there's a niche market out there for people that will take a ridiculously low amount for their home because they just do not want the headache of people walking through their house. And so, like, understand that you guys have cash buyers at your disposal. There are investors anywhere that'll buy a property at a certain rate. So if you hear that ding, 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 start making sure you can present them the option of, well, I actually have some investors that may be willing to buy your home all cash, no headaches, don't even list it. It's going to be less than what you could get on the open market, but a lot less headaches. We can go that route if you want, or we can list it traditionally, right? So watch out for those markers well, because if they're nervous about people walking through their house and they don't want to do anything and they're just nervous about all the work, well, okay, I can give you a no headache option. It's not going to be the most amount of money, but it will be the least amount of headache. And if you care about that, then we can pitch to that. What else here? Digging into motivation.
I like adding I had not done the what are you nervous about?
Mm-hmm.
But I think that's a good to just,
Yep.
It just bubbles all that stuff to the surface, and then you're not dealing with it down the road because you're going to deal with it eventually.
Mm-hmm.
So if I know what I'm dealing with, then I'm not fighting ghosts.
Yep. And like the thing, like Bridget brought up what's the pain about your current situation. I also really like to get them talking about what their next step is, because that's probably what they're most excited about. So, all right, so what's your next step? Like, what are you going to do next? Where are you moving to next, right? And so they're like, well, we're really excited about getting a bigger house for this, this, and this. Like, dig into that, because let them talk about the joy and the dream that they're chasing, because they're going to get excited about that. And it's going to bring them back around to, oh, okay, yeah, I really want to sell because I really need that, right? And maybe they're moving out of state, but let them talk about that. It's not relevant to what you're going to help them buy, but it could be relevant just to get them excited about, and we've just always wanted to be on the beach, and so we're moving to Florida, and there's some cool options down there, really cheap, and man, sounds like a great opportunity. We need to get this sold so you can get that, right? So let them talk about what their next steps are, okay? All right, so at this point, we built rapport, told them what we're going to do. They've dug into motivation, so I know exactly why they're selling, what they need, and then the next part is how we can help. Like, this is the part that this and the money and the numbers are the part that most people are worried about, because it's just like they feel like they have to say it just the right way. So the way that I do this is really, really simple. I start off by explaining the team approach. I think that's a good way to start. And I have my 30-second elevator pitch with a team, and it always goes like this. Probably one of the most important things for you to know is I'm part of a team. It doesn't mean you're going to get bounced around to a lot of different people, but it does mean that you're never limited by my schedule. So if you need something and I'm not available, I got a team of people that can help. It also means that I got experts in marketing and experts in admin and paperwork and compliance, so I can spend all of my time with you negotiating and making sure you get what you want, right? That's how I explain it. And that's it. Next thing is I talk about the NAR stat, and I set up everything that we do, frame it around the NAR stat. So what that is National Association of Realtors does a profile of a home buyer every single year. And one of the questions they ask is, where did you find the property that you actually ended up buying? An overwhelming majority of buyers, over 95%, say one of two answers. I found it online myself, or I found it from my real estate agent. They sent it to me. So why is that relevant to say? Because, Mr. Seller, I'm going to spend all of my time, energy, and money marketing to the two groups of people that matter most, buyers online and other real estate agents. And I frame everything I do around that stat because I've eliminated anything else as a possibility of being helpful. I said, like, if we're not marketing to buyers online or other real estate agents, it flat out doesn't matter. And so I've removed myself from needing to say all this other stuff about, like, I'll put you in the real estate book and I'll do this other thing and I'll do this, right? Like, no, that doesn't matter. So what I say so then you just break down the two categories. So what do I do for buyers online? I make sure you're on every freaking website out there. I list them all. Zillow, Trulia, Realtor.com, Homes.com, Redfin. I make sure they know you're also going to be on all other brokerage websites as well, because they're ignorant and they think their listing is only going to be on a Keller Williams website.
I literally had a buyer that was like, "Oh, that's a Relevate home."
Yeah, yeah.
I was like, yes.
I just had a buyer recently that was like, I do have an agent, but don't worry, we might still buy one of your houses. I'm like, all these homes on the website aren't my houses. But do you have anything signed with your agent? Because you maybe still work together. So make sure they know that the home's not just going to be on a Keller Williams site. I literally say it's going to be on RE/MAX site and Coldwell Banker site and all the other brokerages out there as well. We have exclusive partnerships with those people, and the homes will pop up on those sites. It's true. The exclusive partnership is called the MLS. So I tell them that, and then I also mention social media. So I say all these websites I just mentioned are for active buyers. We also chase passive buyers by creating social media ads and catching people who may not know they need to buy a house, but when they see your home, now they know they need to buy a house. Right? And that's the way I phrase it every time. Next, we need to market to other agents. Talk about networking within Keller Williams. We have more agents than anyone else in the United States. That means I'm directly connected to more agents than anybody else. So when I have your listing, I start talking with all my Keller Williams friends, make sure they know your listing's coming up, and a lot of times we get something sold just directly between our Keller Williams agent offices, like what you guys have experienced before. Second, talk about coming soon groups. Like, that's a really big thing. So I'm in a lot of Facebook groups where all the top producers are, and we talk about the listings that are coming up but not available yet. And so when I put your thing in there, I can market directly to all the top producing agents out there who love the idea of a carrot that I'm dangling that they can't have yet. It's not on the MLS, but it will be soon, and it just always looks better. Grass is always greener, right? A home always seems better in a coming soon group because it's not available on the MLS, right? And so I talk them through that, and it's true. And then if you want to dig into reverse prospecting, I think it's a cool thing to talk about that everyone can do but no one talks about. Also, my team will go into the back end of the MLS, and we can find every agent that has a buyer set up on a search that matches your listing. Then I can contact those agents directly and make sure I get their buyers into your home to see it, right? That's reverse prospecting. Everyone can do it. Very few people talk about it, and it makes you seem like a listing ninja.
Listing wizard.
Listing wizard. The other thing you want to talk about every time, on top of all that, we need to make sure your home looks as good as possible. So we're going to do professional real estate photos every single time. I'm not going to stop it with my iPhone. I'm not just going to get any old professional photographer out here. I'm going to get a professional real estate photographer that only takes real estate photos. They know the right angles. They know the right staging. They know what rooms to photo and what rooms to not photo. They know how to get the lighting right. And we'll absolutely make sure your home looks as good as possible. Then every time I say, if your home needs a professional cleaning, a staging consult, whatever your home needs to get it ready, we'll take care of that, right? Most of the time, it doesn't end up needing a cleaning, but Sarah and I were just talking today about a listing she's got coming up next week that just like, it feels like it's going to go to an investor because it's got a lot of disrepair, but probably half of that is just that the home's dirty. And so we just go in there and do a $200, $300 professional cleaning, and we pay for that, Relevate does, then the home's probably going to sell fast, right? And sell to a buyer versus an investor. So talk with me, talk with Nick. If you think it's relevant or it's warranted on your listing, we'll do it. And a lot of times with the staging consult, you don't really actually need to stage. They need someone to walk out there and just talk to them about the staging of their home. You can get some free quotes on staging and get some great information just from the free quotes. And then I let them know we'll do an open house as well. This is part of making your home look as good as possible because I'm there. I turn all the lights on. It smells good. It looks good. There's other people in the house. So we're building excitement. So if you want an open house, I'm happy to do that as well. Sometimes I will bring up that, like sometimes I'll say, if you want to know the industry secret about open houses, they serve agents more than they serve sellers, to be honest. They're really there so agents can get more buyers. Someone walks in and they don't want to buy your house, then I get to go show them another house. So that's why I always say open houses are optional. They are up to you. There are certainly benefits of an open house, like making your home look really good and building interest by having a lot of people in there. So if you want an open house, we will do it, but I'm not going to force you into it because I don't want to push my agenda on you. And I love saying that because it feels like I'm being really honest with them and really like you're building trust by letting them know that. And I especially use that if I don't want to do an open house on their house.
Which is 100%.
Yeah. So if I don't want to do it in the house, I make sure to use that line.
Our business model.
The last thing that I will I'll mention is coming soon. So I will say, in this market, do not mistake selling fast for selling for top dollar. The mistake a lot of agents make is they just list your home for sale on the MLS. You're under contract within 24 hours, and not every buyer had an opportunity to get out there and take a look or even know it was for sale before it went under contract. So one of our best strategies is coming soon marketing. We will put your home on Zillow. We'll make sure that people know that your listing is coming soon but not available yet, so people can start getting ready, building rapport, building their schedules around making sure they see your home, right? So we talk about coming soon as a strategy so they know this is not just to sell fast, this is to sell for top dollar, okay? And that's it. That's what we do, okay? I know it seems like a lot, but it's framed pretty simply in buyers online, other real estate agents, and we'll do anything and everything to make it look good. Professional photos, cleaning, staging, whatever you need. Mention coming soon if you want to build rapport, right? That's a lot simpler than you guys are making it. And by the way, it's word for word in the listing appointment guide. So take that, read it, and just say it, right? Now, the next biggest thing I think where people make mistakes is on the numbers section of it. Oftentimes we give the sellers objections before they have objections when it comes to the numbers portion. So this is exactly what you're going to do in the numbers portion. First, share the neighborhood stats because you're setting expectations. These many days on market on average, here's the average list price to sold price. So you're setting expectations. This is the average. Let's not think it's going to sell in one day for 10,000 over, right? Here's what your neighborhood says. Next, you're going to talk through the 2 to 3 closest comps to their house and explain why it's better or why it's worse. This one was listed at 300,000, but has a bigger backyard, not as nice finishes on the inside, so it's probably valued 5 to 10 more than what yours is, right? So you're going to talk through that with them. At the end of the 2 to 3 comps, you're going to give them a range every time. I don't ever give them a number. I give them a range. So based on these comps, it would not, I say this line every time, it would not be ridiculous to list your house anywhere between, I'm implying that it would be ridiculous if you list outside of this range. Would not be ridiculous to list your house anywhere between 375 and 400. Wouldn't be ridiculous. And try to make it a relatively narrow range. You don't want it to be like $100,000 range.
Yeah, it would be crazy. You just did this like 400, 500,000.
Anywhere between 100 and 300,000, you'd be good. So give them a range, and then, and I don't pause. This whole section, I'm telling all the information. I don't pause. I get through all this information, and then after I've given them the range, I say, so what is your thoughts within that range? What were you thinking about? And I make them choose a price. Before we move on, they're going to choose their list price. Okay?
Do you, before you make them choose, because I know we talked about just explaining hey, if you're higher in that range, you might stay longer on market. If you're low in that range, you might go off quicker, but now that you know.
Yeah.
I always use the line that the market will tell us whether or not we're priced right.
Yeah. The market will tell us if we're priced right. What you're saying, Thomas, I do use a lot. Just I'll say, so what do you think? And then before they answer, I'll say, keep in mind, the higher we are in this range, the more likely we are to be worse than the average stats for your neighborhood. The more likely it's going to take more days and list for less than list price. The lower we are in this range, the more likely we are to beat those stats in the neighborhood. But ultimately, I want to empower you to make this decision for yourself. I think anywhere in here we can make this work. What do you think? Right? I'll let them choose. Now, the costs. Here's the other part that's tricky for people. So the most important part about the costs for me is you are not going to stop until you get to the end of this section. Don't pause after every step and go, any questions? Any questions?
Are you okay giving me just $20,000?
So is that good or not, or no? So you're going to go through the whole section, let them see the whole picture before you say questions, right? So I'm going to start with the fees that they cannot control. I want to stack up all the fees that we don't have anything to do with, right? Title fees. I talk about title fees. Hey, here's what you're going to pay in title fees. Typically, I say about 1%. It may be different for Phoenix market. You know, you guys want to know what your average number is there. I typically give an average number and a slightly overestimate. Then, this is the way I talk about commissions. Next is commissions. I don't say my commissions are. I say average commissions for our market is 6%. I don't say this is my number. I just say this is the number. This is the market number. Average commissions for our market are 6%. 2.8% of that goes to the buyer's agent. And remember, Mr. Seller, we talked about earlier, one of the most important things we can do is market to other agents that have buyers. Well, one of the best ways we do that is giving them a fair commission. So 2.8% of that pays the buyer's agent, so they'll bring their buyers. What's left over, 3.2% goes to my team. It go to me, it's not going in my pocket. It goes to my team to pay for marketing, pay my brokerage, pay my team, and there's a little bit left over for myself, obviously. I would word it like that every time if you guys are not. They think the entire amount is going in your pocket. They believe that to be true. And you, of all agents, have a great excuse for why this is not all freaking going in my pocket, right? It's going a million different ways, right? And so,
$1,000,001.
so tell them 3.2% of that goes to my team to pay for marketing, pay for my brokerage, pay for my team, and a little bit's left over for myself, obviously. Like, be honest, I'm making some money, but I always phrase it that way. A little bit,
not making as much as you think.
a little bit left over for myself, obviously. Then I have the note in here. Without pausing, I say, so total costs are around 7%. Again, I'm being conservative here, should be a little bit less. So with the list price you gave me, $400,000 minus 7%, here's what your net is going to be after cost. So I do the math right there. So 400,000 minus 7%. So you're going to have, what was that? 42,000? No. 400,000, 4 times 7. 28,000. So 400,000 minus 28,000. So you're looking at $372,000. Don't stop there though. Now, your mortgage payoff. Do you know your mortgage payoff amount? I'm going to ask them that. If they don't, I'm always going to come prepared with a general idea of what I think it is based on what the tax record says. You can look at their last loan amount and we can do some math together and figure out. So I tell them, it looks like my numbers say your mortgage balance is around 200,000. Does that sound correct? Yeah, that sounds about right. Or they may have their statement and know the exact number. So 372,000 minus 200,000. So when it's all said and done, you'll walk away with $172,000. Any questions? That's when I ask for questions. Do all the math for them, tell them how much they're going to walk away with, and then ask them if they have questions, right? It's like the 3.2%, $12,000 or more is a lot bigger deal when that's the only number you're talking about versus a difference between 170,000 and 172,000 or whatever it is, right? Like a 1% discount, that's literally what they're talking about. Well, someone else said they do it for 2%. Okay, so you're talking about 170,000 versus $172,000, right? Like,
By working with me, we probably get that back in your pocket.
yeah, exactly. So you get to the end of it and let them know if they have any questions. Okay? Ideally, they don't. Okay? They may have questions. Ideally, they don't. But don't give them an objection. Do you have any questions about any of that? Does that make sense? Right? There's really a lot of small nuances with communication that I try to do good about explaining, because I think I insert it without explaining a lot of times. When you say, any questions about that, does that make sense? You're setting them up to say, yeah, that makes sense. They want to answer the easy question. Yeah, that makes sense. And so then it's less likely they're going to be like, well, I want to talk about a discount, so. Next, we've talked about all the costs. We've set their list price. We're going to set their list date. So I say, so next thing is, as I mentioned previously, we like to have a couple weeks to get prep time, to get our photos and our coming soon marketing going. So for me, an ideal list date would be, let's see, what is it? It's the 23rd, so 30th. So the 6th of February, that would be my ideal list date for you. Does that work for you? Like I tell them, 2 weeks out, the Thursday that's 2 weeks out from now, that would be my ideal list date. Does that work for you? Pause. And then sometimes I'll add the disclaimer, we can obviously get things going quicker if we need to. So if you need to get it listed faster, like we can get it ramped up. But the reverse of that is also true. You want to give me 2 months to get your home marketed and get stuff ready, like I'll take 2 months. What I want to set up for them is, if you need to sell this week, great, let's do it. If you're not ready to sell for 3 more months, I still want your freaking listing agreement signed. So the whole carrot I'm dangling, the key to getting the listing agreement signed is letting them know that the more time I have, the better, but I can't do any of the marketing or talking about your listing until this is signed. So you need to let them know the more time you have to build, to start talking to agents and doing the marketing, the better for their home, but you can't do that until the listing agreement is signed. That's going to be your key to getting it signed, okay? That's how I set it up. And for me, I don't make them sign it right there. I'll email it to them, but I'll tell them, I'm going to email you the paperwork. It just says everything we talked about when we want to list this, my fees, the process for what we do. It talks through the fact that I'm legally obligated to get you the best deal possible. So I'm going to email that over to you. Look through. If that looks good, sign. And just as a reminder, I can't get started on anything until that's signed. But if you get that signed, I'll hit the ground running and we'll get going. And that's it. Okay? So there's a lot of nuances in there that I think we're cutting corners on in listing appointments, and it's why you guys are struggling. When I talk with a lot of you guys about listing appointments, a lot of you guys come back and have the same ahas. Like, I've heard multiple of you say, I'm trying to figure out how to get the listing agreement signed. I'm thinking maybe I should tell them, like, I can't order photos until they get it signed. Yeah, you should. What the listing agreement says. It's what our thing says. Dangle the carrot, right? I think a lot of you guys are like, man, I offered a 1% discount, but I'm not sure I really needed to. Yeah, because you gave them the objection, because you paused after commissions instead of working all the way through, right? Because you didn't set up for them that, most of the 7% is stuff I can't even control. And of the stuff I can control, most of it's not going to me anyways. And so what I'm trying to do is say, man, of this 7%, maybe like 1% is going to me that I can control. 6% I can't. So you set it up to say, like, just don't worry about it. Like, you're gonna have to pay the stuff, but you'll get top dollar, right?
Yeah, I think just as you're talking, I'm thinking back, just even on buyer's appointments too, that I've gotten so confident in explaining the process that I have not taken the time to focus on building rapport as much as I should and learning as much as I can about them, which is probably why I'm like had some struggles with some buyers where it's like, I don't really know what your biggest pain and your biggest motivations are right now, which is why we are not on the same page. So.
Yeah. My biggest encouragement, I think, with this is, like, look at the listing appointment guide and just follow it. Like, I know it kind of seems like a dirty word or a dirty phrase, but, like, stick to the script. Like, because it was created for a reason, and it's not word for word in there, but it shows you the agenda and what you should talk about and in what order. And it was built with a lot of communicating, like, nuance to it. Like, a lot of, like, communication theory is added into that. Because you guys didn't know, that's what I went to college for. I have a degree in communication. Like, so when I build these things, I build it with a lot of communication theory and nuance into it. To be said a certain way, to be followed a certain way, because it makes the buyer or the seller think a certain way. So just all I'm saying is, like, stick to the script. Like, I know a lot of times I'm talking with Jay, and he's, whenever we're, like, motivating him and, like, getting him excited to jump back on it, a lot of times it's, oh man, I was getting off script again. Jump back on script, and then boom, I set 3 appointments today, right? And so we're all tempted to do it. For him, it's the opposite of what you just said. For him, it's, I was building too much rapport, and then they ghost me 10 minutes later, and then I'm upset about it because I was building rapport. Don't give them the time of day of rapport if they're just gonna ghost you 10 minutes later. Stick to the script, right? And so with listing appointments, stick to the script. It's designed to eliminate and handle all objections. Let you guys know.
I got a question for you.
Yeah.
So do you like in my buyer's presentation, when I do a buyer thing, I always have the contract with me and kind of walk them through it rather quickly and just show them like the good points of you don't pay me and you can cancel at any time, right? And so do you do a similar thing? Like, do you also bring the listing agreement on these listing appointments, or are you not walking them through that?
I do not. I don't bring it. I don't walk them through it because, in my opinion, I think for most people, it's going to cloud kind of what we're talking about. Like, I think what they care more about is how much am I paying you, and are you working in my best interest, and can you get this done, right? And so I don't talk through it, quite honestly, because I want to make it as simple as possible. I just want to talk about what they're looking for and how I can get it done. And so again, like, I'm not the agent that's going to like take you to court over this listing agreement. And like, I know that ends up meaning like I could get burned, but so for me, I'm not concerned about talking through it because what the important stuff is, I need to work in your best interest, and here's how much you're paying me. And we've already talked about that, right? So I try not to, just to make it simple.
Do you feel though that there might be listings or listing appointments that you go on where if you got them to sign the listing agreement while you're in there, maybe it kind of commits them a little bit more? Although, like, at the end of the day, we all know that if they just flat out don't want to sell with you, they're not going to sell with you, right? But if they have signed it with you while you're in the door, I mean, because then if they might try and give you an objection, you know, when you're asking for them to sign, it's kind of like asking for the sale. If they have an objection, they're going to say why they're not going to sign. So then maybe you have the opportunity to circle back and overcome that objection and then ask for them to sign again. You know what I mean? Whereas if you don't have that conversation in front of them, or asking them to sign the agreement right then and there, do you feel like then maybe they're going to say, you know, maybe they just flat out won't respond? Or I don't know. I haven't gone on a lot of listing appointments, and most listing appointments that I do go on are people that I already know, and it's a pretty simple conversation.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I love the process of it. It's more sales side of it.
Yeah, so that's a great question. This is my opinion, so I can't say that this is true or not true, but in my opinion, I feel like agreements, agency agreements, mean nothing in terms of a buyer or seller's like loyalty to you. And so like for me, like if they were going to work with me, they were going to sign it and weren't going to give me an objection. And if they're not going to sign it or give me an objection, they weren't going to work with me. Or if I'm really good at handling that objection and they sign it, they're going to be a pain in my ass because they're going to be the people that are like, well, you pressured me into this, so everything better be perfect from here on out. And so for me, like, I'd rather miss out on those people that are like nervous about signing it because they just don't see the value in working with me after I've explained it, because I'd rather just not work with the people that I know are going to be a pain in the ass because they're like every 5 minutes like, well, you know, we didn't want to work with you in the first place, so this needs to be good and this needs to be good. So I see what you're saying. I do think it gives an opportunity for objections, but I think like you can add a line to the end of this without going through the agreement of just like that's why I say like, so I try to set a list date, because if they set a list date with me and they've already set a list price and they've already agreed to pricing, they've already agreed and let me, like, I've skipped the conversation of do you want to work with me? I just jump straight to when are you going to work with me?
Just assuming you.
Yeah, I'm just assuming the sale from the get-go. I never pause and have that question, are we working together or not? I just want them to get so far down, they're like, well, I guess we're working together now because you said it was going to be on this day and we got all this stuff set up. So I think that, you know, I don't think it would be a bad thing necessarily to talk through it, to go through it. For me, I don't think it's going to hurt you necessarily to talk through it right then. I don't think it's going to turn a buyer away necessarily that would have worked with you. I don't feel it's necessary. I feel like it can cloud it up. You can send it, and the people that you've won over are going to sign it anyways. I could be wrong. I think you're right. It could give an opportunity for objections. It could be that, you know, they might sign it on the spot, but they won't sign it later. But my experience is those types of people that would sign it if I go through it now, but won't sign it later, are people I probably don't want to work with anyway. So I'm okay losing that business. I don't know if you have any thoughts on that or experience on that.
I'm not okay losing any business.
Trust me, you're gonna want to be okay losing some business.
Yes, you are.
I wish I would have lost some business already.
Mhm.
Not
Yeah.
afraid to lose business
Yeah.
anymore.
Yep. I think that's like, I know it's kind of in jest, but it's like that's like that is where I'm at. Like you want the key to happiness as a real estate agent, like lose some business. You know, like be okay not working with some people. And Michelle Wolf and I were just talking about this and her 401 earlier this week, and we were just talking about like how she let someone fire her that she wouldn't have let fire her 6 months ago.
Yep.
You know, and how like her happiness is just going to be 10 times better. It's just not going to be worth the pain and headache of those people. So
Firing you from under.
so I'm just never going to be the hard sale person. That's just kind of my personality. And so I'll never be like, sign this now. And so I'll probably lose some people that way, and I'm okay with that. I probably win some people over that way as well, you know. And so I think it balances out.
Be true to who you are.
Just be you. Be you. Do you. You do you. Cool. Any other questions, guys?
That's good. Good
Okay.
refresher.
We did not have time to talk about the new MLS comping, so I will not do that now. But we may take some time to do that here in the next week or so, so you guys feel good about that.
That'd be good.
For sure.
That'd be good.
All right. Go kill it.
Killer, killer, killer. So the one on Columbine Way that